5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Mom and Grandma. If you're listening, hello, Grandma. So, Truth, Beer, and Podsequences, just to give you the quick rundown. I am Marco.
And I am Julia.
Hello, Julia. Thank you for joining me again here on Truth, Beer, and Podsequences. So, for those of you who are new to the show, we are going to always, at the top of the show, let you know what to expect, what we are, why you click the button. So, Truth, Beer, and Podsequences, where it's a show where we recap the Cincinnati Craft Beer Podcast with our version of the truth. Julia has one, I have one. And we're hoping there aren't too many consequences from the hosts of the other podcasts or the podcasts that we cover when we add in our own wild speculations about what's going on behind the mic, or maybe things that we are clued in on that you, the public, need to be clued in on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, I did notice during the last episode, I say absolutely a lot.
Absolutely.
Maybe that could be another drinking game. How many times do we say absolutely during a show?
I love it. And I was listening to one of the podcasts because, as you know, Julia, I listen to all of them.
I was
listening to one of them, and I was mentally tick marking how many times somebody else said absolutely, and thinking at the very same time, I do that.
Absolutely.
I didn't think you did it.
That's all I noticed when I was listening to our last episode. I'm like,
go ahead,
man.
And everybody who's listening, go ahead and get your drinks ready for the absolute drinking game.
So today we are, as always, at BC's Bottle Lodge, Montgomery, where a kid can be a kid sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And you know what? I was here as we were setting up. I was here, and it has a lovely aroma here because the Cintas guy was here. He just replaced the urinal screen, so it's very fresh smelling here at BC's
and
Bottle
fresh
Lodge.
welcome mat out front.
There is a fresh welcome mat,
yeah.
which is fantastic because, you know, with the sort of rain event that we're having right now, it's nice to dry your feet off before you come, you know, sloshing into the beautiful.
You don't want to slip.
Montgomery.
That would be a liability issue for them, and they just don't have the legal counsel to handle you slipping and falling on their
and our producer Kenny, he's busy.
He is.
He doesn't want to have to come and
pick you up
or mop or, you know,
sanitize the
dispose of the body.
Yeah. So, and again, huge shout out to BC's Bottle Lodge. Wanted to let you guys know that today's show is absolutely not sponsored by Fretboard Brewing. And I heard that they had a new jingle for the brewery, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to sing it, but I think you guys will kind of get the gist of it. It's based off of Kansas's most popular song. If you are ready, I shall begin.
Oh, I don't know if I'm ready. Hold on a second. I'm ready.
All right. Come on in, my daughters and sons. We have cold beer when work is done. Grab a pint and start a tab. We're never going to give you up, never going to let you down, never going to turn around and hurt you. Fretboard Brewing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can tell why they don't sponsor us, because they have bigger and better things to do. But Fretboard, you know, if you want to, you could.
You're right down the street, guys. Come on.
You're right down the street. Actually, before we started the show, I had a Grateful Spinner.
Nice. That is a fantastic beer.
It was great.
I love it. I absolutely love it. What's speaking of beers, what's in your glass right now?
Thank you for asking, Julia, because, you know, you can't have a beer podcast without a beer or a few. And what I have here is Pipe Dream 2021 from West Side Brewing. Have you heard of them?
I have, yes.
This is a citrus wheat. Citrus wheat ale brewed with honey and spices. That was my nickname in high school. At 5.5% ABV, 20 IBUs, and the can is very attractive. It's a very attractive can. Looks like.
That's actually the beer brewed by the winner of their homebrew contest.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. It's delicious.
It's
fantastic.
It is very good. I had it shortly after it was first tapped, and I'm glad there's still a couple cans floating around here and there.
Absolutely.
Hey.
I got it.
Boy, guys, this is going to be a good one. What I'm drinking right now is a Rusty Rails peanut butter Hefeweizen. I don't remember any of the stats on. I think it's about a 6%er. It is on nitro. And it is a wonderful, wonderful mix of peanut butter and that kind of banana clove of a typical Hefeweizen.
8% served in the
8%? I was close.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. In brewing terms, I mean,
What's 2% ABV really?
Nothing really. Not much.
Exactly.
Not much at all. I mean,
what podcasts are we covering today?
right, because I listen to all of them.
Every single one of them.
Every single one of them. But, I mean, today we're going to cover specific ones. And what's interesting about this week is that there's a show absent this week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hey, people are allowed to take vacations.
Are they, though?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, we can just go into it.
Let's
right?
do it. Let's do it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we're not covering shift beers this week because even though we are under the belief that a show was recorded and Beth was driving the show.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure she did an absolutely
fantastic job. I'm sure she did an amazing job.
Yeah,
we're just going to have to wait to hear it because Mr. Big Hat, Mr. Vacation Big Hat, I don't know if he wove that hat himself or if he bought it off of a native.
If he bought it, he got ripped
vendor.
off no matter what he paid, even if it was free.
But he looked happy in that hat. It looked good on him.
Yeah.
So he, I guess, didn't edit the show and post it. I mean, and when you're on vacation, should you be, worrying yourself with such things?
No, but depending on what day he came back from vacation, it is now 2 days past when they normally post.
Mm-hmm.
Surely he's not that jet-lagged or road-lagged if they drove, that he couldn't provide back to us, to his loyal listeners, an edited
And when we
episode
say
of Shift
us,
Beers.
we mean specifically us.
Yeah,
you and
just
I.
Marco and I. Yeah,
You and
absolutely.
I,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
for you to think that we're talking about all of you, the general public,
The other 3 people that
is
listen.
very gracious, very gracious. But
It's
no,
all
we're
about
talking
us.
About ourselves.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Shift Beers is off the table today, which means no burp count, no drinking game.
Right.
But that's all right. We actually have a podcast that is going to fill their shoes that we have not yet covered at all on any of our many 2 previous episodes.
Right.
It was. And I'm going to go ahead and go into it. Let's just get started with the recap. We have our beers. We've announced that. We've said who we are, who our host is, who we're not sponsored by. It's time to dig into some podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't bring a wheel. I'm not setting up the dartboard today. Julie and I,
It's strictly business.
We're diving into it. As we get closer to, the season's starting to change. We just said we're going to get serious. We're going to get into this. Not that the whole thing's going to be serious, and not that we won't have elements of fun coming up in the next few episodes to decide in which order we're going to talk about these shows. Today, Julie is bringing the heat.
Absolutely, because I can't stop saying it. It's a problem. It is a problem.
Oh.
So I want to give a huge shout-out and apology to Miss Diamond Bell of the Beer Is Not For Boys podcast. I swear up and down that I subscribed to her podcast when she was on Cincy Brewcast with Gnarly Gnome and Matt DeMaris. And I was looking through my list of podcasts and went, why don't I see this? I never actually hit that subscribe button. Apparently, I have an issue with hitting buttons. But she released an episode, just a quick 8-minute introduction episode back on June 22nd. So Diamond, again, apologies. We were not intending to overlook your episode at all. So I'll go over the episode. It was, just an introduction of what she wants to do with the podcast. She started off by cracking open the craftiest of craft beers, a High Life, in honor of her dad, who is the one who introduced her to beer and got her started on the beer journey. So I can definitely toast to that one. And she really went into the podcast being about how really women in beer, and specifically women of color, aren't very prevalent in the craft beer, both industry and community yet. And she's right. So I think that she has an incredibly important voice for the community. I think that it is going to be absolutely fantastic to listen to her show as she goes to different breweries, talks to them, sees how they're being more inclusive, how can we bring more women into the brewing, both industry and the drinking community, and people of color into the brewing industry and to the drinking community. She mentioned that Esoteric is her home away from home. Every beer there is a phenomenal beer, which I agree with. And I really can't wait to hear more. I'm really looking forward to her first, I'll say full-length episode where she is sitting down at a brewery, maybe with friends, maybe just by herself, enjoying a beer and telling us about, just giving us her voice for Cincinnati craft beer.
Yes, and so a little bit behind the curtain, when that episode of Cincy Brewcast was recorded, I was sitting right here at BC's Montgomery. It was recorded right here at BC's Montgomery. I was sitting right where we're sitting, the very same table, and they were at the table right behind us.
Okay.
And so after the show was finished, of course, the Gnome invited me over to talk with them, and that's where I got to talk with Matt DeMaris face-to-face for the first time, and I got to talk with Diamond, and we spent a good amount of time discussing that as a subject and discussing beer and many different things, and we talked about esoteric, and I follow her on I follow Beer Is Not for Boys on Facebook.
I follow Beer Is Not for Boys on Instagram. I don't know if she's on Twitter or not. I failed miserably with this one, but search Beer Is Not for Boys, subscribe to the podcast, follow her on all the social media that she has, and make sure that her voice is heard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now that's a double. For those of you drinking at home, that's 2 Absolutleys. So you get 2 glugs in there. So great work, Julia.
Thank you.
Great work.
Well, I feel like it's not great work because I should have pushed the button when I thought I pushed the button. But hopefully I have made up for it, and going forward I will not miss an episode.
We can't go back and change the past, right? We can just act on and hopefully change the future.
Mm-hmm. So the rest of the podcast that we have to go over, it's kind of interesting this week.
Very interesting.
We swapped Shift Beers for Beer Is Not for Boys, but every other, I don't necessarily want to say podcast host, but podcast group has 2 episodes, or at least 2 different mediums that we're going to be talking about. Sonder Stories, we have episode 69 and episode 70. And we have, from Matt DeMaris, we have both Hustle and Brews, his live episode at Fretboard, and the Outcast podcast. And then from the Gnarly Gnome, we have Cincy Brewcast and Prost.
Yep. Yeah. There we go.
So I say we just knock them out as groups.
Yes.
And see where that takes us. So who do you want to start with? We should have brought the wheel.
Yeah. And I went on this whole thing. I did a thing where I said we were ready. We're going to dive right into it. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about Cincy Brewcast and the Gnomes platforms, because I think we started the last episode talking about Matt DeMaris' show. We
did.
Yeah. So
yes.
So we try to, in all of our shows, in all of our episodes, all of them, we try to rotate the order in which the shows are discussed. That way none of the shows think that one show is getting precedent over the other. Also, that way we give each show sort of the same level of inebriation, in the rotation.
Right. Like so, the very first ones that we do, I mean, we're only a few sips into our beers. By the last one, we're finishing up our 4th, 5th, 6th
whatever.
pint. If
you're trailing behind, that's okay.
It's cool.
It's not a contest for us in that regard. We're going to talk about the Gnarly Gnomes platforms, Cincy Brewcast, Prost. I am going to pull up show notes. New ales, changed plans, and better because of it. ?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he put the punctuation in there, so I made sure to include it. So when we last sat down with the folks at Middletown's New Ales, it was March of 2020. The brewery was brand new, excited for the future, and they had big plans on running their nano brewery as a production-only space for the near future. I don't want to spoil anything if you just woke up from a coma, but 2020 was pretty messed up. Everything changed. New Ales was forced to very quickly do something that craft breweries have proven to be great at, adapt. The brewery started doing beer to go, put together a fantastic outdoor beer garden, and then a small tap room in their space. When I say small, I'm not just exaggerating, it's tiny, but that's part of their magic. This week we sat down had a few beers, and talked about what makes it all work. So, how do you shift with things when you're that new? They've handled all of these changes better than a lot of folks would have anticipated them to. And the beer they're putting out is pretty great, too. Certainly worth a long conversation. And then they talk about the guests. So Beth, Nikki, and Wes, new ales from the beer fridge. Wonder Twins, Powers Unite, still not as bitter as your ex.
That is such a phenomenal beer name.
I mean, that could be a good fantasy football game. I mean, still not as bitter as your ex.
I like
Do you
it.
play fantasy football?
I do. I'm not good at it, but I always
team
sign
name?
up. Normally, it's was that a home run because I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. I love watching football. I don't
I heard
get that.
Okay,
into
so I
it.
listen to all the podcasts. So one of
Yeah.
the podcasts that I listened to, they were interviewing a person who's named Greg Lobo, and they asked him what his fantasy football team name was, and he says, "Well, I hope I can say it on the air." And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead and say it." And he goes, "My ball, Zach Ertz."
That's pretty good.
Right?
I like it. I
Zach
like
Ertz.
it.
Like that's genius.
I wish I was that clever.
I think in certain situations and things that we know and things that we're comfortable with. I mean, I'd like to think all of us have some sort of unique sort of ingenuity or some sort of creativity in those areas. When we find it, let's work on that.
Let's work on it. When we find it, you guys will hear it first.
That's right.
So, New Ales, the first question that I had when they started, they're located in Middletown.
First question I have is, why was that description so damn long? My God, I got winded.
I think Matt DeMaris probably wrote it. But
Bum-bum.
throw back to episode 1. If you want, go back and listen to it. If you don't, don't. But my first thought is Middletown Cincinnati? It's kind of right smack dab between Cincinnati and Dayton. So is it a Cincinnati brewery, or would it fall more under the Dayton brewery umbrella? Or is it an island all in and of itself?
Well, it's in the middle of two towns.
True.
And as far as the way that the Gnarly Gnome continues to put his given radius on things, it's clearly within his
That radius.
within his circle, within his radius, and it is growing.
I was just going to say, but his radius is growing just like my waistline is.
Well,
so
I wouldn't have said that, Julia.
you
My
better
waistline.
not have.
You could say my waistline. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have said that. But no, but I think that's fine for a Cincinnati Craft Beer Podcast to talk about a brewery in Middletown is absolutely okay. And for but I get where the question comes up because he's focused on the Cincinnati region, right? And
right.
whereas Matt's podcast, would in one of our previous episodes, he went to a brewery outside of Dayton called Alematic, and his is a little bit more about
Traveling, or
and traveling. Yes, traveling within the city, but traveling period. And we'll get to him. But my point was made when I said the question is fair because the Gnome is a Cincinnati podcast,
right.
but it's that line. That line is coming. It coming to be certainly blurred. The craft beer community was excited because of news breaking today, which the first I heard of it was from a Gnarly Gnome post.
Likewise.
Where Warped Wing, the brewery out of Dayton, a brewery from Dayton, is moving into a building in Mason, suburb of Cincinnati.
Right,
And
northern suburb, yeah.
Northern suburb. And so that's pretty exciting. So the Cincinnati craft beer community is excited for that to happen.
But does that make them a Cincinnati? And this will kind of, Gnome tends to go into a lot if places open up second locations, third locations, or if it's out of town and they open up a tap room in Cincinnati. Is it a quote unquote, Cincinnati brewery? Can it fall under that umbrella as long as they are brewing on site in Cincinnati, or is that still kind of up for debate? A little iffy, a little murky.
The way he talks about it is the way that they're licensed. If they're
Okay.
licensed to brew there, whether they have a piece of steel or not, he counts them, according to what I understand.
That's fair.
Just following his podcast. And I
That's
know
fair.
we've strayed away a little bit from
New Ales. Yeah, I do. I definitely want to get back to them.
The point is more of these lines are being blurred, and it's, according to me, in my own opinion, and the only person it counts to is me. Because, I mean, really, nobody else should hold my opinion in very high regard at all. That's totally all right. It's absolutely cool. It's totally okay. And the people at New Ales, I've never met them. Hopefully, in our crossings in the craft beer community, one day we get to have a cool chat over a pint, and hopefully a pint of some of those beers that they were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to talk about their upcoming pumpkin beer, which is being released on September 3rd. Apparently, it was a huge hit last year. They are, I believe, if I heard them correctly, they have managed to find hundreds of pumpkins, real pumpkins, that, when hollowed out properly, can hold exactly a pint of liquid. So when you go to their small tap room, to their beer garden, starting September 3rd and up until, I guess, they run out, when you order one of these pumpkin beers, you get to drink it out of a hand-hollowed-out pumpkin. And if you want, you can then take it home and carve it into a little jack-o'-lantern.
That's an amazing idea.
Yeah. The creativity is
I think
phenomenal.
only because they're on the scale that they're on is this even possible, right? Because
they're going to try.
Can you imagine how many glasses Mad Tree goes through on any given
in
Wednesday?
an hour? Just in an hour, right?
Any given Tuesday, any given Wednesday, or Fretboard goes through in a session of Monday Night Podcast. They would have to have so many pumpkins. I mean, that would be ridiculous, laborious, and
I'd love to see pictures
of
where they're keeping them.
Yeah, I mean, they probably have to have some sort of refrigeration, or maybe they're doing some sort of treatment to keep them all viable. But honestly, if you don't take them home, I can't see them being able to sanitize those and reuse those.
But I'm wondering if they could reuse them, if they could scrape out more of the flesh that's inside and use that to make more pumpkin beer. Because in the brewing process, that liquid, those ingredients get hot enough to sterilize, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's a thought.
I mean, it's a cool idea.
It's a thought.
Nobody's done it yet. Now, it could be one of those things where you say, what's the famous line from Jurassic Park?
Hold on to your butts?
No, the other one. Not the scene where the
just
T-Rex,
because you could doesn't mean that you should. I'm horribly paraphrasing. Or they never thought. Yeah.
Yeah, you were so busy wondering if you could, you never stopped to think whether you should. Yeah, but pumpkin, do it. And if anybody at New Ales is listening to this, and I'm sure all of you are, if you end up getting a can or two down here to BC's Bottle Lodge Montgomery, we would absolutely try the beer on the show and give our critique of that beer. And
unbiased, unfiltered.
Yeah. We are not tethered to any sort of allegiance.
Because breweries don't sponsor us.
No, they haven't yet.
They haven't. I mean, maybe they will. Maybe that will change in the future. But for now,
maybe
it's fair game.
It's all fair.
Yeah.
So they have an extremely small tap room, according to the podcast,
that they weren't planning on having.
Right.
Pre-COVID, yeah, which I thought
Correct.
was really, really interesting. When Gnome interviewed them the first time, 2 years ago or so, pre-COVID, it was 100% production. It was, we're going to just put our beer into kegs and some other form of can and distribute it. No one's really going to be able to sit here and drink our beer. But then when COVID happened, as you said, in the show notes, they had to pivot.
Yeah, so they expanded the outside and have grown their business. I got to tell you, from a brewing standpoint, brewing on a one-barrel system and being able to have the flexibility and agility that gives you sounds great. But they even talk about it in the show where they're brewing 4 or 5 days a week. Now, big breweries brew 4 or 5 days a week, and big breweries brew 4 or 5 days a week in 2 shifts or 3 shifts. But for a 1-barrel brewery, so you're getting 2 half barrels per batch. 2 half barrels. Freshness, storage, and the amount of beer that they have, when you think about all of those things, you think that they're perfectly set up to be able to, number one, they mention in the show where they don't mind if they have to punt or if they have to dump something.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the amount of cost involved in making that amount of beer is probably not that significant in the grand scheme of things. Now, also, you're able to, with 10 taps on a 1-barrel system, you're able to put on the different styles that you'd like. And I hesitate to use the word innovative or even number 2, creative, because we're making beer, right? Okay, so if you really think about it, how much innovation is going into it? What are you making that somebody else has never made before? So I hesitate to use creative and innovative, but I will say that creative I'd lean a little more towards, because there are some liberties. There are some things that you can try. There are some ways or approaches that you can do that maybe other people haven't done very much of. You're taking a pull off a finished product, and you're like, this just isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
Us deciding to put goji berries into something and not thinking about all of the freaking little seeds is terrible.
Are you speaking from personal experience with that one?
No, I switched up the berry in the show. That they,
Yeah.
But I've done things like that, though, right?
Well.
Where, oh, God, we didn't think about that. But it was on a very small scale. Like, as an example, we had an experiment with a half barrel of a product, and we were using a raspberry something, and the seeds were just super problematic. And then so we tried a couple of different iterations of sifting those seeds out, and we came to a result that was really successful. But I feel the pain, but that's a cool part of brewing on a system that small.
Yeah.
But it also sounds a little daunting if you end up quite busy. So it sounds like the taproom space, even without the outdoor space, is giving them a balance to where they can produce, sell through quickly, and then the need to keep producing is continuous.
I'd like to think that them starting out as a production-only brewery might have helped, because they had in their minds, okay, how many kegs do we need to fill, to stock, to have ready to go? So they weren't starting taproom only where they expected 20 people an hour, to throw just a random number out there to show up to where they weren't thinking they were going to go through as much or as little.
I don't know. I don't
know if that question made any sense.
It's a really interesting question, right? I want that business to succeed. I can't wait to try the beer from that business. One nugget that I took away from the show is that all of us back in 2019, pre
the world exploding?
Yeah, I mean, pre that, remembers that Hops in the Hangar was a beer festival.
Event. It was.
And it was around for a couple years. It was at least 2 years. At least 2 years that the Gnome talked about it.
Yeah. I actually went to the first one because I won tickets from the Gnome. From a little like quiz, or not really a quiz, but he said, hey, we'll have like a drawing, get whoever gets the closest to guessing the number of beers that I have drank on the show. And I just kind of did some like quick, really weird maths about pulling up a couple episodes, seeing the average number of beers listed in the show notes and the average number of episodes, and grabbed a number out of my ass, and it was close enough that I got 2 tickets, and it was such a fun event. So
That's
I was
awesome.
I didn't know that, or I didn't realize that New Ales was kind of a part of that first one. I believe they said it was rebranded now to Not Your Average Craft Beer Fest is what it's going to be.
Yeah, I guess there were issues about
the skydivers.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know. It's a thing.
I mean, I did think it was a little odd at Hops in the Hangar when you go there and for $20 you could just get into a plane and skydive. I mean,
it seems like a cool beer event thing.
Yeah,
what could go wrong, really?
Drinking beer and then getting in a plane and jumping out of it.
I mean, what's wrong? I don't see the problem there.
It's not the fall that kills you; it's the bounce afterwards.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
I have heard that before. You know what, Julia? You telling that story makes me just think. It's so crazy over the past few years how many different things, how many different ways that we have sort of been in or around each other's sort of stratosphere, and
we never crossed paths until very recently. Yeah,
until we are here at Truth Beer and Podsequences, where this is the way we heard it. I mean, if you don't think the show happened that way, go listen to it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover before we move on to one of the other things that the Gnarly Gnome does? And by the way, for those of you new to our show and not listening to the other shows, I guess some of these people, some of these scenarios that we're talking about may sound like inside jokes or inside information. They're not if you listen to the other shows. But if you come straight to our show, it could be a little tough to follow sometimes because we're talking about the people that are on the show, the hosts that are on the show, the people that we have interacted with, bumped into, that we know, or that, coming to us first is fine. We're going to try and help you along. But you could do yourself a little bit of a favor and go and listen to the other shows and see if that's your thing.
Right. And if you do happen to stumble upon us before you stumble upon the podcast that we're talking about, hopefully our version of the truth of these podcasts make you go, did they really say that? Did that really happen? And it drives you to listen to these other shows,
right,
which is really the whole point of all of this.
It really is. And then for us to get together, talk about the shows that we listen to, and
have a pint and have some fun.
Yeah, have a pint and have some fun. So
wrapping that one up. Yeah, wrapping up Cincy Brewcast.
Do it.
Go visit New Ales. Go up there, drink their beer, support them. Their pumpkin ale was it an ale? Did they specify the style of beer that their pumpkin beer was? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's a Belgian.
Okay, well, go up there on September 3rd when that releases. Drink some beer out of a hollowed out pumpkin. And have some fun.
And tag us at Truth Beer Pod on Twitter when you're up there drinking it.
Prost is the Gnarly Gnome's a YouTube show where he's just hanging out in his basement, having a drink, speaking about a particular style, or sometimes it's a cocktail, sometimes it's liquor, sometimes he's drinking booze, but he's just having a drink with you and talking about what he's drinking. So, Marco, you want to go over what Gnome shared with us on this week's episode of Prost?
It was weird. He had a weird entry into Prost. Normally it's like he's like... Anyways, but he started with this.
Hold on, little girl. Show me what he's done to you. Stand up, little girl. A broken heart can't be that bad when it's through. It's through. Fake the twist of both of you.
I have no idea why he started with that, but he started with that.
Well,
it was an Oktoberfest show, and he started with Mr. Big.
Yeah, I mean, he had the lederhosen, the hat.
He had the hat, and it had all these pins on it, like he's a decorated Oktoberfest veteran. Which he is. Let's be honest, right? If anyone is, he is. But I don't understand starting with Mr. Big. That's very strange.
Yeah. I mean, I like the song. I wasn't upset about it, but he tends to be very good about fitting into the theme of what he's doing.
I think what it is, he's testing people to see if you're actually listening.
Paying attention to it?
Yeah, are you paying attention?
We are.
Absolutely.
We are.
So the two beers for the first Oktoberfest Showdown. Now,
which I guess we should go over what the Oktoberfest Showdown is really fast, because that's covering all of his social media and podcasts for the rest of the season.
Yeah, do it, Julia.
So every year for the last couple years, Gnome has put together an Oktoberfest Showdown of only Cincinnati breweries' Oktoberfest beers, Fest beers, Märzens, and he uses his own ranking system to try to pick what he feels is the best Oktoberfest in the city of the year. Now, these are only Cincinnati breweries that have packaged Oktoberfest, so something that you could go to the store and pick up off the shelf. So nothing you would have to run out to the brewery themselves to get. Nothing that's draft only. And again, these are his picks. Like, he's not saying that this is going to be your top Oktoberfest, but it's what he feels is top of the season. And last year was kind of a surprise winner for you and Gnome, because you helped to decide on the winner last year.
I did. I was an accomplice. That's true. I was honored to be invited. Part of the reason I was invited is because in the year previous and maybe previous to that, we had canned our Oktoberfest, which I still say, when you go back and listen to that episode when he had our cellar dwellers, cellar dwellers, beer, he liked it the best. The only reason he did not crown us as his favorite is because he said once he found out our ABV, and okay, all right, look, 7.1 and 7.2, whatever it was, I get it. I get that we're not in, the tiny beer category with the little beers.
The little ABVs.
Anyways, he liked it the best. I know he liked it the best. He knows he liked it the best. I'm okay. It's good.
You're comfortable with your beers to where it doesn't have to be crowned the best,
Just because my beer is the biggest. Okay, it was fine. And so he crowned last year, which my beer was not in the competition because we stopped packaging our beer. He crowned Listermann I think it's Fest beer.
It was a Fest beer, yeah.
Fest beer. Crowned their Fest beer his favorite. And like I said, I was an accomplice, so I was right there, and I was, I'm not mad. I was not mad at it.
Well, hey, it's a new year, a new Oktoberfest season, so a new whole range of beers for him to pretend that he likes the best.
And there's a lot of them, so he has to get started
somewhere
as soon as possible. He had to get started. And so the first two beers, did you name them?
I did. I have not named them yet.
Okay.
I will give that honor to you, sir.
All right. First two beers. October Fuel from Braxton, and then Sam Adams Oktoberfest from Boston Beer. And don't add us. Boston Beer is a Cincinnati brewery.
Beer made here.
Yeah. It is absolutely made here. And they have a tap room now.
And a lot of seltzer production happening, too.
And a lot of seltzer.
Think the Pumpkin Spice Vibe's coming back this season?
From Braxton?
Yeah. Anyway.
Why wouldn't it?
I don't know. We digress.
Yeah.
So back to the showdown.
Yeah, do it.
So he poured both of them into branded steins. We had a Sam Adams stein. He had a Braxton stein.
Of course he did.
He did say that he does not have that type of proper glassware for every beer that he's going to be trying. He was very upfront about that.
But if you want to provide it for the gnome,
he will gladly accept.
Just go to thegnarlygnome.com and let him know.
Yes. His wife would love to have more glassware in their house. She has said numerous times in the Weekly Pint. But yeah, so he sampled both of them. It was two very similar styles. But when it all came down to it, the winner was, you'll have to go to YouTube and Gnarly Gnomes, youtube.com/Gnarly Gnome. Go to his channel, and you'll have to watch yourself to see who the very first winner in the bracket was. I'm not going to spoil it for our listeners.
No.
I will say the winner was an Oktoberfest beer.
Yep.
So anything else that you wanted to discuss about Prost other than his crazy choice of intro music? And those lederhosen, I never knew they came that short. It was kind of awkward. It was
strange. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's one of those situations where he accidentally got women's instead of men's.
I bet he ordered from wish.com.
Oh,
because that whatever you see on their website, what you get.
Not women's lederhosen, but it's youth.
The dirndl,
youth lederhosen versus adult.
Go to the YouTube channel, watch Prost, see the winner, and he is posting on all of his many, many different social media, so his Facebook, his Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, different pairings, so he's not going to post what he did on Prost to any of his other mediums. So if you want to know all of the winners as he gets closer and closer to that final bracket, again, follow him everywhere. It is worth it.
Oh, you know what, Julia? Before we move on to the next pod entity, network, there if we're going to keep up with or report to you the Gnarly Gnome's Cincinnati Craft Beer brackets as they come out.
As many of them as we can catch anyway, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But you and I were both interacting on the Weekly Pint, which happens on Mondays. If you follow the Gnome on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Is it on Instagram?
No, it streams on Facebook Live, which is where I feel like most people join the conversation. But it's also on Twitch and YouTube.
Okay, so if you want to join the conversation with the Truth Beer and Podsequences hosts,
the hosts
get up
with
on
the most.
Get up on the face space, and we are there. And
Every Monday, roughly 9 p.m.
Between 9 and 9:30. I mean, sometimes it's 9, sometimes it's 9:30. One time it was like 12:30 a.m. I'm not asking you to go listen to that episode because I had been waiting for him since 9 p.m.
And drinking the entire time.
I
was a bad fan. I gave up and I went to bed. I was also getting up at 4 o'clock the next morning. But
oh my God! Hold on a second. I'm gonna have to pick up the bona fides. He texts me. I text him. He texts me directly saying, "Hold on, bro.
Man.
It's coming."
So
and I think it was a show.
You guys are texting each other.
It was just a show between like the two of us.
Just the two of us.
Yeah, and I was hammered. So anyway, and I recording a podcast with this guy at 12:30 a.m. when I had to wake up at like 5:45. That's commitment, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
Anyways, I won't cover the whole show, right? Because it's not a show. He'll tell you it's not a show. But as far as the Cincinnati Oktoberfest Challenge, he had Oktoberfest from Taft's, and then he had Sonder's Oktoberfest. And am I going to say who moves on, or we leave it, or I don't know as many people are going to go. I don't know. What do we want to do?
We did not expose Prost.
Okay.
Which is more of a show.
Yeah.
So I say go ahead and reveal the winner of the Taft's versus Sonder bracket.
Okay, so the show that's not a show, he did another bracket, which when you have this many beers you got to get through, and you have these platforms, he's got to get to it. When he can get to it. So, Oktoberfest versus Sonder Brewing. Julia knows who moved on. I know who moved on. And
let's give it to the listeners. Let's give it to them.
Okay. And Sonder, congratulations, Sonder, moving on in the Oktoberfest Cincinnati Bracket Challenge.
Congratulations, guys. Let's see how far you go.
Yeah, I had that beer. Have you had it yet?
I have. It is wonderful.
I had it on draft at Sonder.
We're direct from the source.
Yep.
No better way to have it.
I was sitting right next to Chase Legler.
No way.
Yeah.
The Chase Legler.
I was sitting right next to him.
The guy
and
who was going
wife,
to be
Haley.
in 50 West Punch-Out, fighting all the people that can't pronounce beer styles.
Yeah, he was extremely gracious.
And we're back.
Hello.
Hi.
You didn't know we left.
No, they had no clue. Even if I put in the little stinger music, they have no idea if we left and then came back the next day, or if no time at all passed while we were sitting here, and I just felt like it was a good point to slap in a little extra music.
What if we go back to the future?
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, we're back in the future.
What's
to talk about the past. So what do you say we cover 2 more podcasts, both by the same general host, and then we take our break, refill our glasses, or I believe you have a bucket?
I do.
For
I have
us?
a bucket.
How about we go through 2 more podcasts?
It reminds me.
Bring out the bucket.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the last 2 that we have for today's episode.
Okay.
All right. So next we're going to talk about, it's going to be the Matt DeMaris section. We're going to talk about both Hustle and Brews and Outcast Podcast. Mm-hmm. Which one do you want to start with, Marco?
I want to start with, so to take you behind the curtain. I've said that again, like in this episode.
It's kind of your, I don't say catchphrase, but it's kind of your thing.
I have a lot of things, and that's one of my things.
Is that what your wife says?
Mm-hmm. So you and I, Julie and I, were at Fretboard on a Monday night, which in Podcast Landia, when I say a Monday night, you don't know which Monday night.
Right. I can actually tell you which Monday night. It was Monday the 10th.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, the 10th was Tuesday, the 9th. It was just last week.
Right. And we were there because it was ladies' night.
It was not ladies' night.
No, it wasn't ladies' night.
It was podcast night at Fretboard.
That's right. Mondays at Fretboard. Catch your favorite podcast live at Fretboard. Fretboard Brewing.
They're never going to give you up or let you down.
That's right. Very good.
The Hustle and Brews live at Fretboard. Now, this episode, I do not know if it was recorded, so I do not know if any of you will ever actually hear what happened on stage. Could be good, could be bad. But we're going to talk about what we experienced
absolutely.
while we were there.
And it was a who's who of Cincinnati craft beer podcasters or Cincinnati just beer people, right?
It really was, right.
So we had, we were there, so everybody should be there. And then the Gnarly Gnome was there. Matt DeMaris, of course, was hosting his podcast. And then some of his friends from the Outcast podcast were there. And then we had a Cincinnati beer writer from the Cincinnati Enquirer.
Mm-hmm. Was Cincy by the Pint there? I can't recall if I saw him or not.
Don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
We'll say he was there. No one will know.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So Cincy by the Pint was there. And
so was Have a Drink Show. They were there.
Okay. So it was a who's who.
And everybody that's usually on the show for Sonder Stories was there. Mm-hmm. And Shift Beers came in late. It was already over.
They rolled in and they were already...
They're like, whoa, what's up, bro? Hey.
Howdly doodly.
Howdly doodly. I'm like, yeah, it's over, dude. What? No way.
But, I mean, they still got to give Matt a handshake, so it's,
They gave Matt a handshake and they went to a gas station and...
Bought a bunch of singles. But you know what? Today's episode is not about them because this week they did not show up in my podcast app.
That's what happened.
So back to Hustle and Brews.
So it was really cool. Matt had a DJ on stage. So you had some DJ music.
Some live scratches happening.
Yep. And first for me, by the way. That I'm not really... I think we covered it in the previous show or one of the previous shows. I mean, that's like not in my live genre. However, that was really exciting. I appreciated it. Got to talk with Matt's wife.
Chanel, yep. Yep.
She was great.
Oh, she's phenomenal. She works in the same building that I work in, so I get to chat with her on occasion, and absolutely, she's such a wonderful person. Both of them are really wonderful people. Both of them are
really wonderful, treat us really well. And I hate to speak for both of us, but we were both sitting at the same table, and so she treated us very well. Yeah. It was fun. So the premise of Hustle and Brews is, just so for anybody who's new, the premise of Hustle and Brews is Matt DeMaris is an entrepreneur. Matt DeMaris doesn't think or feel like he's an entrepreneur. Matt DeMaris takes himself more as a hustler, baby. And so what he does is he interviews entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, over some craft beers. They talk about their come up, their struggle, their why.
Well, let's just say that this episode, they weren't just drinking craft beer.
No.
They were drinking some craft milk. And why were they drinking craft milk?
Yeah, I mean, the artisan milk, ladies and gentlemen. They had on stage artisan milk because they were interviewing the owner of a hot sauce company.
Yeah, Nathan Hanks of Hot Sauce for Mortals. He came in, local guy, grows all of his own peppers for the hot sauce that he makes. And Matt was interviewing him about his why, about getting started, about some of the challenges that he faced, and forced almost everyone to eat hot peppers and spiced chocolates as well.
It was very interesting. I hope everybody gets to hear it. I do hope it was recorded. If not, let me just say that it was a pretty interesting story. I want everyone who likes hot sauce to get into his social media because that's really where his sales are driven.
Yes.
On social media. So the company is
Hot Sauce for Mortals.
Hot Sauce for Mortals.
I find them on Facebook and I believe Instagram. I think they're on Twitter too as @HotSauce4, the number 4 Mortals.
All right. So, Julia.
Yes.
You bought some of the hot sauce.
I bought every hot sauce that he brought to the event to try it. My boyfriend and I love trying hot sauces. Sometimes I regret that decision immediately. Other times it's not, it's a fun experience. So when there is a local Cincinnati, curator, creator of hot sauce, I wanted to try them all, to bring it all home, and they were all delicious. Nathan focuses mostly on the flavor of the hot sauce, and then tries to bring the heat in second, because there are a lot of hot sauces that they just try to be purely hot. There's no flavor to them. It's 100% heat.
Right.
Some people are into it. I prefer flavor to it.
Absolutely.
My favorite one, and also what I thought was the hot sauce that he made, and I should have put up my notes on what was all in it, but it was it was made with coffee, was the hottest and probably the most flavorful hot sauce of the 4 or 5 that he brought to sell.
So what was interesting about Matt's show is that because he was interviewing the owner of Hot Sauce for Mortals, there was a wing challenge.
Yeah.
And so he brought people up, they signed waivers, and then there was a hot sauce wing challenge. Now, all of the people on stage were able to manage putting down the wings. Right. And so once that was over, Matt was kind of like, all right, thanks everybody for coming out. And we're like, hold on a second. You and I, Truth Beer and Podsequences, we said, wait a minute. And there were these there were these chocolates that they put out as a teaser. That what was it like? Melt your face or something like that.
Yeah.
And so if you follow Matt or end up following Matt DeMaris or Hustle and Brews, and you can go back and see that video about these little chocolates of melt your face. We said, wait a minute, because he had volunteers come up at the beginning of the show and try the chocolates. You and I stood up and were like, no, hold on a second. Let's do another round of these volunteer chocolate, mess, hot chocolate things. And we're like, okay, so if all of these contestants are not vomiting because they ate all these wings, let's taste these chocolates.
Yes.
And so there's about 15 of us that got up there and got to sample a chocolate.
Yes.
Julia, what'd you think of the chocolate?
It did not melt my face, but it did clear my sinuses.
It was interesting. I also want to commend you too. I mean, only doing Truth Beer and Podsequences for a couple of weeks, I commend you on being an instigator. That was really great how you were an instigator on bringing up the fun like that. I tried the chocolate, and heat is not really my thing.
So it did melt Marco's face.
No, my face wasn't melted. But I will tell you.
Oh, that's just how it looks?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like present, then and now, yeah. Just the sweating just happens from sitting. Like when I sit, I just sweat. So, but anyway, it was very flavorful, and there was a heat, but it didn't melt my face. I will say it took about 5-10 minutes. And then I
the
was
burn
good.
Goes away.
Yeah, I was good.
Yeah.
I was good.
But we did not need milk. We did not need to immediately drink anything.
No.
They were delicious. They were absolutely delicious.
Absolutely.
I'll say it, absolutely. And yeah, and we even got and hopefully he will release this episode so you will know what I'm talking about. But we even got Baby Spice, who is a self-proclaimed sriracha melts his face, to try one of these chocolates,
That's
and he
right.
did great.
Baby Spice did
He
great.
did great. That night he might have been hurting.
Baby Spice, I know you listen. I know you do, Baby Spice.
You did good.
You did real good.
You did good.
So
anything else about the live show? I mean, it was
there was a
great
guy who
time.
had
It
chili
was-
pants.
Yes, and that brings us into
The Brews Travelers Outcast Podcast.
Brews Traveler Outcast Podcast is another one of Matt DeMaris' podcasts that is a completely different direction than Hustle and Brews. Outcast Podcast is him and a group of his friends that just travel around drinking beer and talking about it. Sort of similar to Shipped Beers in that it's a group of friends just drinking and having a good time, but they tend to be a little more structured in actually trying to describe the beers, and I don't want to say being a little more professional about it, but there's definitely a different lane that they're in as far as sitting around and drinking. But for this episode, I'll go ahead and read the show notes for everyone. The Cincy Brews Traveler, Quick Trip, and Wrong Way Twitty meet at Kenridge Lodge in Blue Ash to try 12 beers acquired from a West Virginia beer trade. And they are joined by the aforementioned Chili Pants.
That's right. That is right. As a matter of fact, the members that showed up to Hustle and Brews Live were discussing their upcoming West Virginia beer share. At least they were to me, and I thought that was pretty cool. So to elaborate on what you were talking about as far as some of the structure, it is friends. It is friends hanging out. They even make mention that during the lockdown, during the heat of COVID-19 original formula, the group would trust each other. They would be very safe outside if they had to interact, but they felt like they were in a safe space when they came together and shared beers. And I get you can have your own opinion on that was wise, not wise, but look, we need to live life in some form, folks, right? And be responsible, but getting together with a group that you feel safe, there has to be an outlet. You have to have an outlet,
Oh,
right?
for
And
sure.
so
You'll go crazy if you don't.
So that was great. And I didn't take notes on the actual beers that they took. I can tell you that most of the beers that they drank, which were mailed from West Virginia.
No, they didn't say that they were mailed. They said that they arrived
I'm
from
sorry,
West Virginia.
they arrived from West Virginia.
Yes.
Were not from West Virginia.
That's true. They were almost everywhere except West Virginia.
Right. And then, okay, so what they do is they say the name of the brewery, they talk about the beer, they give ABV stats, then they all taste the beer, they give it a rating, and then after they give it a rating, I think they do look up an untapped rating for the beer.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the formula for the podcast, right? So it's friends hanging out in this episode. But even in the episodes where they go to a location, they still take on that for the beer aspect. Now, on the Outsiders podcast, if they're at a location, it usually has a segment where they talk about the decor, they talk about the atmosphere, they talk about the environment, they talk about beer, and then they usually interview somebody that works there, a bartender, an owner, a brewer, somebody like that. But this is just a good old-fashioned, fun, buddy beer share.
I will say that there were beer-style mispronunciations abound.
Galore.
But they tried. They gave it a phenomenal effort to pronounce those names right. So I commend you. I'm not even going to give you guys any crap whatsoever for it.
And they leaned into it.
They
leaned into it. And thanks for the shout out on the show, guys.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate it.
Just because of that, I will not say a single thing about the way that you guys pronounce Berliner Weises or Hefeweizens or anything else on the show for at least 2 or 3 episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe 1.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But good listen. I enjoyed it. As a person who, you listen to different genres of music. Maybe, you listen to books on audiobooks, or maybe you do all these other things. I mean,
were you about to say books on tape?
Didn't I say that we taped the show last show?
I think you did.
We haven't taped.
It's fine.
We haven't taped anything since you and I were in high school.
It is accurate.
Mixtape.
I guess to kind of wrap up Outcast Podcast, it's a great show. Give it a listen. Subscribe to it. It's just friends having fun drinking beer, but being, like you said, kind of structured about actually giving you information about it and about the places that they're going. And on the music note, I absolutely love their intro music. It makes me, it's travel music. It makes me feel like the kind of music that would be playing in my car when I'm driving down the highway, taking a trip, hopefully to a new brewery to experience.
And I believe if you follow the Outcasts on Facebook, they do shout out the fact that, is it Quick Trip and his band that made the song?
They shouted out the band that made the song, but I didn't write it down.
I think it's Quick Trip's band.
Okay. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it.
Check it out. Check them out. Julia.
Marco.
I think we need to pause.
I do think we need to pause. I think
we both
of our glasses are about empty.
We both need to refill. We need to collect our thoughts and just go full steam ahead
into this bucket that you brought.
Yeah, I brought a bucket.
And Sonder Stories. So
That's right.
hang out. But yeah, give us a minute, guys. We will be right back with you, and we will finish up with Sonder Stories.
All right.
We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back.
Hello.
So we have fresh cups of beer, and we actually each have 2 cups with 2 different beers that were picked out of Marco's bucket of mystery.
That's right.
Yeah. So, Marco, what is the first one that we pulled out?
We have the Nectar of the Mexican Gods, Danny Trejo's Cerveza.
Now, they had this on Shift Beers.
That's why we have it.
And they hated it.
I know.
Is that why we have it?
That's why we have it.
All right.
Yeah. So, Mexican craft lager, product of the United States, 4.7% ABV. It's canned in 16-ounce pints. And I know this is fresh because it says, "I'm coming for you, Josh," on the bottom of the can.
Oh, damn. He listened to the voicemail.
Absolutely.
All right. So,
Boom!
too many. There are too many. So the other beer that I pulled out of Marco's bucket of fun is very appropriate for the season. It's Polliner. I'm not going to say that right, but pronunciation of anything beer related,
It's fine.
we have come to discover
okay.
it doesn't matter. But it's the Oktoberfest beer, the original from the Munich Oktoberfest. It is 6%, and does it say if it is I guess it is an Oktoberfest, but I don't see anything if it's more of a Märzen or a Fest beer, although it's light enough to make me think it leans more on the Fest beer side.
Yeah, sure.
Listen to me, sounding
Okay.
like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so before we try these, the last segment that we have is going to be dedicated to the past 2 episodes of Sonder Stories. Episode 69. Where they interviewed the owners of Responsible Products, and episode 70, where they do their own International Oktoberfest taste test. But first, let's see if these beers are any good.
Okay.
Which one do we start with?
I want to start with the Cerveza. With the
Danny
Trejo
Trejo
Cerveza.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. Let's see. Go ahead, Julie. I'm going to let you take a sniff and take a
It
drink.
kind of smells like piss, I'm not going to lie.
Okay. Did you sniff the cup?
I might have sniffed the cup and not the beer. The beer's kind of far down in the cup.
Okay.
But,
Give it a shot.
it's not as bad as Shift Beers made it out to be. I don't know that I would want to buy a full... Was this a 4-pack, 6-pack?
Yeah, I bought a 4-pack.
I don't know that I would want 4 of these, but it's not the worst thing that I've ever had.
I mean, there's still one in my fridge after bringing
You've
this
already
one.
had 2?
Yeah, but they weren't very...
So you cheated. You already knew what the beer would tasted like.
Well, yeah.
It fits. It tracks.
Yeah. So,
All right. Well,
I don't hate it.
Do we want to talk about the first episode of Sonder Stories first and then try the Oktoberfest beer before we talk about their Oktoberfest episode? Okay.
Episode 69. What did they do? Bring Compostable Condom Company on the show?
Ooh. Would have been funny. Probably going to get cut. Not going to lie. So, episode 69 of Sonder Stories, they bring Meryl and Nathan from Responsible Products onto the show to talk about sustainability, all the work that they're doing in Cincinnati with their products, and how they've become partners with Sonder. They also get into some great beer questions, talk about the Oktoberfest partnership, and get to know Meryl and Nathan a bit more. And then, as always, they do What Are You Listening To?, where they pull what everyone is currently listening to. You are making the worst faces drinking that beer.
I tell you what, drinking this cerveza, it's getting worse.
The more you drink, the worse
It's It's getting worse.
You would think you would get used to it.
No, it's getting worse. I'm going to put it to the
but
side.
anyway, Sonder Stories, they always end with "What are you listening to?" So we'll definitely talk about the music that they added to their Spotify playlist. So, Responsible Products, Meryl and Nathan are the co-owners of this company, and they make fully compostable products, which is different from recyclable products because something I never knew until I listened to the episode is And I hope, and I do have to say, I hope that this isn't true. Otherwise, it'll just kind of make me not want to recycle. But most of the things that you recycle don't actually get recycled.
So, much like you burst my bubble on there's not actually blue raspberries.
I'm so sorry. I thought you knew.
Yeah, well, they are absolutely right. Most of what you put in the recycling does not get recycled.
Plastic bottles do, and
Basically,
not much else.
yeah.
Wouldn't aluminum, I mean, with the aluminum shortages, you would think that would be, you'd hope. Is my heart just getting broken more and more? Damn it.
It is.
Well, because of this, Nathan and Meryl formed this company to create compostable products, because even if they do end up in a landfill, they will break down, whereas a plastic bottle is still going to be there decades to potentially centuries later. So they formed a partnership with Sonder to provide compostable cups for them and several other products that you might see if you go to the Sonder tap room. They're also going to be a big part of Sonder's upcoming Oktoberfest, with these products being a majority of the cups that they use. They're going to have specific bins for these cups to where they will pick up the bins full of compostable products to ensure that they are composted properly. And they're doing a good thing.
Yes, there is a large portion of the podcast that talks about, number one, this is a very new company. It only started in November of 2020. So Sonder was an early adapter of, getting behind this product. And they make sure to let you know that not only is it because that's their brand, but it's because leadership at the top of Sonder, some of their founders, Chase and his wife Haley, really champion the responsibility aspect of the company. And so that's really fantastic. Sonder has really gotten behind this. It's really very, I don't want to call it cutting edge, but this is nobody's doing this.
Well, what surprised me is not that Sonder, not that I wouldn't expect Sonder to do something like this, but you don't ever hear them talk about it. Like Mad Tree, they are all about making sure you know how much they are contributing back to the rebeautification and sustainability of the environment, which is phenomenal. They do a great job with that. Sonder appears is doing the exact same thing. They just don't mention it, which I kind of wish that they would let the general public know more about, hey, we're doing these things to help ensure that we have a wonderful planet to live on for years and years and years to come.
There was I think maybe it was in 2019, there was a recognition of breweries that were taking on responsibility to the environment. And, of course, High Grain was in there. I believe Sonder, Mad Tree, of course. And if I left anybody out, I apologize. But having my brain go back to 2019 is challenging.
To say the least.
Yeah, I know. But, yes, they are doing these things. And there's a portion of the podcast that talks about many of the efforts that Sonder is taking to be responsible, not just a responsible business from an aspect of their guests, but also responsible to the environment.
Right.
So when you go and listen to that episode, I mean, really, that's what they're talking about, right? Is the fact that these compostable cups are going to be at Oktoberfest. They're going to be outside on the lawn at Oktoberfest. And this company not only created these compostable cups, but the company themselves are providing bins to where you can take those cups, just like you mentioned. These do not go in the trash. These are going into compost bins, or bins that are going to go back and then
be properly
composted.
Right.
So that's very, very cool. That's very, very interesting, which leads us into the segment that's always around Sonder Stories. Or did you have anything else in the meat of the show that you wanted to talk about?
No, not really. I know that we say this about everything, but it was a really good episode to listen to. It was very non-beer focused. They did mention, some of their great Sonder beers. What do you like the best? Have you had a chance to try the blue ice cream beer in our Oktoberfest?
Yes.
But the meat of the show was about sustainability and trying to have these products that will not impact the environment in a negative way. Like I said, I had no idea that they were doing these compostable cups, and I kind of want to go up there just to drink out of one. Is it like those packing peanuts made out of like the corn syrup that you can eat? They just kind of dissolve in your mouth?
Yeah, or you can just spray them with water and they just dissolve.
Well, then how do they hold beer?
Huh?
How do they hold beer? Oh, are you talking about the
packing
pellets?
Peanuts.
I thought you were talking about the cups.
No, because we get stuff at the brewery from time to time, and when they have those packing peanuts that just dissolve, I mean, we just throw them over the floor drain and just spray them.
I freaked my boyfriend out by popping one into my mouth, and he was like, "You can't eat that." I'm like, "Actually, I can't. It's, can't eat many."
Right.
But
it's a cool party trick.
You
could bring some here and
yeah.
just snack on them throughout the show.
Oh, I want a little, I want a little extra spice in my beer and pop a packing peanut into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, shame when you find out it's a styrofoam one.
Right, it's a shame.
But yeah, I really don't have anything.
What was everybody listening to on that show?
What were they listening to?
Mm-hmm.
Not country this time around.
I know, right?
I was so proud
How
of
about
everybody.
that?
I didn't write down who said this, but someone mentioned that their song that they've been listening to is OAR's That Was a Crazy Game of Poker. I haven't listened to that song since maybe 2000. It is such a great song. The song is basically about a guy that's playing a game of poker with his friends. He's losing miserably. He's drinking while he's playing it. So as the song progresses, he's getting drunker and drunker, and it's brilliant. It's a phenomenal, fantastic song. So you should check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or find it and share it with me or something. I don't know.
I can do that. I'll tag you. So we still have one beer in front of us to try and one more podcast episode to talk about, and both of them are tied incredibly closely together. Mm-hmm. Not even really by design. We didn't plan this because we're not that smart.
No.
But we're going to go ahead and drink if I say pollinator, I feel like I'm talking about bees who pollinate flowers. Yeah. So we'll just, you know what? Let's go with it. This is an episode all about absoluteles and terrible mispronunciations. So let's go ahead and try this Oktoberfest and then talk about episode 70 of Sonder Stories, where they drink Oktoberfest beers.
Yeah, let's do it. Oktoberfest, Sonder Stories.
Episode 70.
Episode 70.
First, let's try this beer.
Yeah.
And then we can,
Polliner.
Oktoberfest beer. Prost. Gotta be honest, not really what I normally would expect or think of with an Oktoberfest beer. It isn't rich enough for me. Or malty, I don't know. It's just not.
No, it's not. And the first thing you get, right, when you crack that beer open is you get that sort of German beer from Germany smell, right? Which could be, I don't know, it could be hop yeast profile, it could be oxidation, it could just be age. But that's the first thing you get. Mm-hmm. And
it's not bad. It's just if I'm looking for an Oktoberfest beer to drink, this is not it.
No.
This is a beer that I would drink on, just a hot summer afternoon when you're looking for something kind of lighter, a little, I don't necessarily want to call this crisp, but I don't know, it doesn't have that Oktoberfest feel to me.
I'm going to read the show notes. The guys get together to not only explore Sonder's Oktoberfest, but enjoy and talk about a couple international Oktoberfest beers available on shelves in Cincinnati. They go over the differences among the beers, discuss Marzens versus Fest beers, and what American Oktoberfests are like. Be sure to check out Sonder and Friends Oktoberfest happening September 25th to drink some of the best local German beers around. Check out the Sonder Stories playlist on Spotify.
So 2 main takeaways from this episode for me. One, they totally stole the bracket idea from Gnome, although they were doing international beers and not Cincinnati beers. But 100% they saw what Gnome was doing and went, we want to do that too, but how can we make this our own? You can't finish drinking that, can you?
You're gonna
power through it?
I'm gonna power through it.
Second takeaway, so much bad German in this episode. So much bad German. And Chase was speaking German the entire episode, so I don't even know.
They even cut him off.
They did. I wasn't sure.
They even cut him off and had to do a rejoin.
It was. I mean, it was really cool to add that authentic flavor to the episode, having like pure German. But German just sounds so angry all the time.
I know he's such a very
such
nice
a good,
guy.
He is. He's a very
really
nice guy.
And so they did pair off a couple of, and there was one that was sort of a weird Hefeweizen, but Oktoberfest.
Hefeweizen.
Hefeweizen.
Again, with the pronunciations.
I know. And then they had Weinstefan, or they were calling it Weinstefaner, and I don't know which way is right.
Our way.
Chase talks German, and
somehow he was speaking German in an Arnold Schwarzenegger accent, which he's Austrian. So that was spectacular to hear.
Yeah, I mean, hearing Chase do that was spectacular. I will tell you that I enjoyed the episode. I liked hearing their comments about the German beers.
Yeah, they didn't seem to like. They were okay with most of them, but they didn't like them as much as they liked their own, Sonder's Oktoberfest.
Yeah, I mean that comes across, but I will say this: as much as we talked about and poked fun at the 10 tap lists, and from Danny and Justin, which they deserve that ribbing for that, and they know that. They have to know that.
They have
right?
to know that, yes.
And not that they've communicated with me, and maybe there's a reason for that.
I think they blocked us actually.
Could have, But these beers, I totally get the comments that they were giving about these beers, because I taste them too, and that's one cool thing. Is part of the reason why on Craft Beer Podcasts a lot of time, or almost every time, somebody's going to talk about a beer, rate a beer, give you their thoughts about a beer, and so that if you feel that you pick up the same things, that you can relate, you're not weird for that, right?
No, not at all.
So it's just like we did right now. I mean, I'm picking up the way that this beer smells, the way that this beer tastes,
right?
And I have to think this can't be the truest representation of what this beer should be.
Right.
I think it's probably extremely delicious. Now, here's one where I will talk about and say I think there's a beer in that panel that I don't want to say is an exception, but I'll say is a standout.
Okay. The wheat beer?
The Weinstefaner, or Weinstefan Fest beer. That beer last year, during the pandemic in 2020, you could get in a liter stein at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh, hell yeah.
And you could get Sam Adams Oktoberfest in a liter stein at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Okay, so if those were your two options, if you had to pick a winner, like you can only have 1 liter of beer, who is the winner in that Oktoberfest bracket for you?
Weinstefan.
Really?
Absolutely. Hands down.
I think I'd have to go. I've had it once, so I could be completely misremembering the beer.
Yeah.
But that almost makes this even better. But I would have to go with Sam Adams. That's my pick for the winner.
Julia, if they do that again this year, if Buffalo Wild Wings does that again this year,
it sounds like we're getting liters.
We're getting liters. We're
Hell
going.
Yeah. Liters and literhosen?
That's right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers
right
to
down
that.
the street. We go right down the street, get a
yeah.
giant liter.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, I think you might agree with me. Once you,
all right. We'll have to.
Maybe.
We'll see. Yeah. And one other takeaway: if you go to Sonder Brewing and you want to order one of their Oktoberfest beers, you cannot tell the bartender you want an Oktoberfest. You have to tell them you want a Toby.
A Toby. Got to get a Toby.
They will not serve you otherwise. Justin has said that he has actually told all of their front of house staff,
right,
do not serve them if they ask for anything other than a Toby.
A Toby.
Yep. Toby for life. Which I will say that their Oktoberfest is an absolutely delicious beer.
It's very good.
No question.
It's very good. I had it last weekend. Or, no, I had it last Thursday.
Okay.
So, it was delicious.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I didn't get a liter because I wanted to have a pint, and then I wanted to have another pint of something else. But next time I go, I think I'm getting a liter.
Nice.
Shout out to Sonder Brewing, by the way. You can get a liter of beer, and they have liters of beer. All of their, I think it's Green Series beers, new people who haven't been to Sonder or new to this earth, they have different series, and there's a series where you can get a leader. Anyways, everybody, this was fun. Julia, thank
Marco.
you for being here.
Yeah, always.
This is great.
Let's not be so completely abrupt with ending. I don't remember what they did for What Are You Listening To? There was, although I do remember that Justin did pick a country song, so we are back on track.
Not only did Justin pick a country song, okay, hold on a second.
You want
Wait
to
a
share
minute.
what the country song is that he
It
picked?
was "What Are You Listening To" by Chris Stapleton.
Such a
It's like,
cop
what
out.
are we doing? What
Right.
is this?
He can't even pick an original
No.
song, like something new.
No, and then finally, Savior, Chase. We're like we're like best friends that don't even know it. Chase, Out of Touch, Hall & Oates.
It was completely out
Was
of
it
left
out of
field.
touch?
Oh, yeah, it was. I was just saying, like, his pick was completely out of left field. Like, I would not have expected that. But I'm glad to see that there are still fewer country songs on the Spotify list. Kind of think Justin's pick was
I'm going to show you
what to be expected.
my picture on Untapped, my profile picture
oh,
on
gosh.
Untapped.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, that's not it. That's not. Are you freaking kidding me?
Go ahead and tell the people.
It is Marco's high school picture standing next to Chase's high school picture. I didn't know you guys went to school together.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. Look, check that out.
Jesus.
I didn't go to Wisconsin. I
No.
photoshopped that, but
Photoshopped Hall & Notes together?
yeah. Yeah, Hall & Oates, Untapped. Find me on Untapped. I'm the guy with the Hall & Oates profile picture.
Yep.
So, way to go, Chase. My man.
Well, was there anything else that we needed to cover tonight?
Our bar tab.
Do you think we could just, like, leave? Kenny knows we'll be back next Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, he knows
that we'll be back.
He knows we'll be back.
Let's not push our luck.
No.
Maybe next week.
Yeah.
Next week we'll drink and dash.
Is there anything else we should cover?
Follow all of the amazing podcasts that we have talked about on all of their social media. Subscribe to all of them. Listen to them. Support craft beer. Support your local tap rooms, your local breweries. Take care of each other.
Absolutely. And listen, thank you for all of you who are listening. Thanks, Mom. Thank you, my sister. My wife doesn't listen. But
thank you, Josh, my love. I know that you listen, even though this isn't necessarily up your alley. I appreciate you more than you will ever know.
Not up his alley because he's like, what is this Marco guy? Anyways, no. But, no, thank you for all of you who listen. Listen, share, follow
us on Truth Beer Pod on Twitter.
Yeah, and follow the show or whatever, do the thing.
Push the button.
Follow, unfollow, follow again, rate, unfollow, follow again, share it with your friends, talk about it, and help us do what we're really wanting to do. And what we're really wanting to do is grow the show to where our platform is big enough to where we can take the show and we can have an impact to help in the Cincinnati craft beer community. That's really what we're looking to do. Mm-hmm. It's not us hearing our own voices or maybe it's part of it, but it's, we want to drive traffic and interest to
Cincinnati craft
beer through these podcasts. So help us do that. Share it with your friends. Share it with your mom. Share it with your grandma. Get your kids listening to it early. Hey, shout out to BC's Montgomery, our gracious host. Thank you to Kenny, our producer today. And, hey, everybody, get out to BC's Bottle Lodge Montgomery. Get out to your places. And, it still smells fresh, by the way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it.
I saw the Cintas guy. Anyways, hey, everybody, Truth Beer Pod on Twitter. Follow us, Julia, next week. Same place, same time.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Cheers.